All right, guys, here is part 2 of the podcast. It gets really technical, really geeky. We're going into some of the specifics that, if you didn't see the first episode with Luke Mann, he messaged me on Instagram and told me that he likes to help guitar players. He DM'd me and said that if there's any techniques I've been working on, he'd like to do a Skype session with me, kind of give me some tips and pointers. I told him I've been working on trying to master the entire fretboard. I want to be able to just put any song on and then be able to play and not be wondering and trying to stumble through to figure out what scales to use. I want to just be a guru of the fretboard and hear a song, find a root note, and just be able to go for it. So he said he's got some tips for that. So that's what we're going to talk about in this. I'd say let's jump on into it.
Yeah, right on, man. So, I mean, besides the scales, I mean, because scales sure will help you so much, but they'll help you to get to what you actually want, right? So, I mean, what is it you want, like, in guitar playing in general? I mean, what's kind of the end goal you're going after right now?
I would say the goal would be to, like, my girl can put on whatever song she wants, and then I'm just like strum a couple chords, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's this scale, and then I can just start playing whatever I want over it.
Okay.
So be able to find a key maybe, and then know which notes to be able to use in that key.
Got it. I understand. So, I mean, what's sort of kept you from doing that so far?
Not knowing where to start. Basically, I've almost learned no theory up until like 2-3 years ago, and then I started realizing, because learning every scale was way too hard. Like, I would see when like John Petrucci or somebody goes through a crazy scale, and I'm like, oh, he uses fingers 1, 2, and 4 on this string, but then 1, 3, and 4 on this string. Then he skips a fret in between this string. I'm like, that's too hard to figure out. I'm just going to use 1, 3, and 4 all the way up the neck. So I would be fucking cheating half the time when I was playing solos and like not learning things right. And then the last couple of years, I'm like, I'm starting to get a little more technical. So I'm like learning each scale and like exercising my fingers so I can go 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, like, jumping around, getting more comfortable with weird fingerings back and forth. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I can play any notes I want. Like, my fingers can do anything. It's just I don't know in my head which notes I should be hitting.
Got it. Okay. So you have a lot of the like technicality that comes with it and the playability, the strength in your fingers, like all that's there. It's just kind of the muscle memory of getting, like I was talking about earlier, that C scale, just being able to nail the different permutations that scale sort of comes in to at the moment. And would you say that that's sort of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'd say that makes sense.
Okay. Got it. And so is it just like the Dream Theater stuff that you're applying that to, or is there some other, I mean, like obviously lots of solos have that sort of thing. You probably didn't run into that given that you're so into Eddie Van Halen and stuff. And
Metallica, like they'll cheat if you look at like tabs of their whole solos, they don't even play in a major or minor. They're like back and forth, like whenever, it's kind of like whatever they want to do, they'll just do it.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so that would be sort of like the theoretical aspect of things, but then as far as technique or playability, was there anything, like obviously I've been watching you play and, you're an accomplished player. Was there anything that you've sort of run into, any troubles you've had, like when it comes to executing picking or like some pull-offs, legato stuff, anything like that?
A little with legato. That's something I'm not really like up and down the 6 strings. I'm not that good with legato. If it's on one string, I can go up and down. And like, especially if I look at a scale, then it's pretty easy because, but off the top of my head, like to know a scale horizontally on one string versus vertically down, up and down the strings. Like, I usually have to look at like the positions and then kind of just like go mess around in a position I looked at. Like, I won't remember, like I can do like an A minor or something like that, but then I can't do an A minor across the frets. I could do it up and down the frets, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to playing across the frets. I mean, is there any solos you've looked into where it was like that, or has that made it like at all harder to transcribe things, or it's just something that you kind of avoid at the moment, or what would you say is your current situation with playing horizontally and stuff?
Well, I'm not like I'm pretty comfortable doing it, but it's just like knowing if I'm in this key, just knowing the whole fretboard basically. I don't know the whole fretboard that well. So like I can like plan something out and like look at all the notes and be like, okay, here's what I'm going to do, and like write it out, and I can figure it out if I write it out, but off the top of my head on the fly, I can't just like throw down like, oh, here's how you do A minor going this way. Now here's where you go do A minor in the 5th position going up and down. Here's A minor over here. Like I don't know it like that. And then someone's like, oh, what about B? B flat major. Okay, yeah, cool. Let's play in that. Like I'd be like, I don't fucking know which notes to use. I don't know which positions to use. Like I could find if you tell me the notes, I can put it together. But without looking at like diagrams of the chords or diagrams of the scales, I can't just off the top of my head bring those up. And I don't know how many guitar players really can. Like I noticed most guitar players, a lot of the way they get their sound is by sticking to a couple different keys. But I would love to be able to just know everything.
Sure. Yeah, man. So at this point, like when your buddy or someone you're jamming with is like, hey, we're going to play in B, like you said. And right now you're going, well, I don't know what the fuck to play in B. I mean, what would your process sort of look like? You said you could, if you were to slow things down, you know, like here's the notes in B. It's going to be B, C sharp, D, E flat, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp, and B. Okay, there's the notes. Like, do you then make your own diagrams, or you would just like find them on Google, or how would you kind of go about it?
Usually the way I would do it is when I first started learning to really play in key a couple years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, I would go on Google and I'd just type in like A minor and the guitar scale, and then it'd pull up all the like. Sometimes it'd only show one position, but I'm like, no, I want to see the whole fretboard, and I want to see every note that fits into this scale in the whole fretboard. And then I kind of look at it and go, okay, I know these shape arpeggios. Where can I do those within this scale? And I'll look over and be like, oh, 7th fret. Okay, that's where I'm going to start that shape because it fits all the notes in this scale. And then I'm like, okay, well, there's this wider arpeggio. I know, oh, there's a spot where I could do it. So like, I'll go find all the little trick. I call those tricks. So I'll find all the little tricks I know and where they fit in the scale, because you could do the same shapes in different places in different keys. So like I'll find like, where's the wide arpeggio I know? Where's this type of arpeggio? And then I'll go, where's the spot that's I can play like a bar chord, because I know every scale there's like spots where you can play a bar, and then that's like where you can comfortably go up and down in position. So like that's usually where I'll go. If I have the scale in front of me, I'll go through and find like where all my little tricks and my common licks, I guess, go, and like where can I add a tap, where can I do like a legato run on one string or something, and like I'll start like piecing together a solo in my head and be like, okay, well next I want to do an arpeggio and then a slide up to another arpeggio up high. So I'll say, okay, I could do it from this position to this position, but without that first piece of paper showing me where each position, where all the notes, the usable notes are, I'm pretty much lost without that.
Okay. Yeah. So interesting. So you were saying like, you have a reference. I think A minor, right, is where kind of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And so then these tricks, like you said, in A minor, like usual suspects in A minor that work well, but then you just try to take those and apply them to the newer keys, and then that's sort of how you feel out like a newer key for you.
Yeah, I'll find out where I have to move them to. So like normally if that's on the 12th and the 15th fret section, maybe I have to move it down 3 frets, but then it'll work in this other scale. Like I'll see where my common shapes can just be simply moved over a few frets and then applied into that scale.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, man. I get what you're saying. And then what about modes? Have you ever messed around at all with the different modes of the major scale, or heard about the modes? A lot of guitarists talk about them.
I think I don't really know what they are, other than isn't it just well, I don't want to fuck it up and tell people wrong shit, and then they're gonna remember it. So, but it's something to do with the root note, right? It's the different modes or different root note that you start on.
Yeah, definitely. So if you were to play, you know, a 7-note scale, and you started, but it was the same 7 notes every time, just in a different order. So not even in a different order. If you have these 7 notes, let's go C, D, E, F, G, A, and then B. So if we were to start on C and play all those notes to B, it would sound very happy. Well, until we got to B, and then it'd be like, oh God, please play C. And then we played C, and then it would feel like, okay, perfect. That was totally a major scale. Now, if we play the exact same notes, and we started on D, and we played all the way up to not B but C this time. Just fact checking myself here. And actually, we'd play up till. I'm gonna pull out the guitar, as long as we're talking about not saying shit that's wrong. But yeah, so if I were to play C, let me grab one that's plugged in. So yeah, if we have our C major scale and we play, it's obviously, those were the notes I just spoke about, by the way. It's going to have a very, very happy sound to it. Now, if I'm going to play the exact same notes, only starting on E, like you said, or if I even play it up and then end on E, based off of the different intervals, the different distances between the notes, it's going to have a different sound, because just the half steps and the whole steps, you're hearing them in a different combination in relativity to your starting note. And so they each have their own characteristic and their own vibe. So like one of my favorites is, if let's start on the E note, you know. You know, obviously that sounds like way more dark and mysterious than if I were to go. So again, the exact same notes, but you can exaggerate that by if you have a bass note. You know, if I were to play that whole scale over the bass note E, then that whole thing is going to sound dark and mysterious, like I just said that. And you know, they all have this Greek name, so the name for that one would be Phrygian, and then for the C it would be Ionian. But that's just kind of as a side note. When it comes to you learning to play horizontally, or play in different keys, I mean, what's sort of held you back at this point from like nailing other keys? Is it just like jamming with other people, or it's just like not really the necessity, or what would you say?
Really the thing that held me back from other keys would be just that, like, it seems like so much fucking work to memorize A through G, natural, major, minor, harmonic. Like, do like, I always wonder when I see like really good guitar players, because I know like Kirk Hammett doesn't fucking know all these scales, and I know like Eddie Van Halen, he doesn't know all the scales. Like, I'm sure they know a bunch of scales, but they don't know every scale. So like, when I see certain people that are like actually educated in music, who have went to like school for it and stuff, like someone will say like, let's play A minor or C sharp. All of a sudden they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. And they just move over to C sharp, and I'm just like, how do you know? Like, you're not playing like one note. They don't play one note wrong, and they're like, I could hear it when I hit a wrong note. I know. I'm like, oh damn it, don't hit that note again. But like, it blows my mind that people can just remember every single note, or every set of notes that belong to each key, and then they can just look at the neck and be like, oh yeah, just play in this position here. Like, I don't know if it's just from putting their hours in of memorizing scales and playing in those positions, or what it is, but it seems like it's just so much work.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I think it's might kind of come down to just the fact that, hey, my muscle memory is very familiar with these shapes in this key, and at the end of the day, like, yeah, it's going to look different because we have these different inlays higher up on the fret, but if we were in A minor and you wanted to go to C sharp, we'd move up 1, 2, 3, 4 frets and play the same shapes. And what it comes down to is the way they interlock with one another, because each of the scale shapes, like the end of one scale shape is always the beginning of the next one. So if you're just very familiar with the beginning of one shape to the end of the next one, and you close your eyes, someone puts your hand 4 frets up and a C sharp backing track on, sure, the scale length might kind of make the jumps a little less bigger, but a little less big, but it's going to be the same scale.
Yeah, so it's all about intervals. So like if you move up, like you're saying, 4 notes to go from A to C sharp, then it's the intervals are all the exact same, right? Because it's always whole, what is it? Whole, half, whole, half for a major scale.
Yeah.
So like, is it simply just move up 4 frets, and you could even close, if you have that muscle memory there, you could just close your eyes and play 4 frets up. It's that simple?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the cool thing that kind of ties into what I was talking about with the modes is, like, the major scale is, like I said, a mode. It's called Ionian. The minor scale is also a mode. So because you're playing a major scale and you're calling it a major scale, it doesn't mean that it's not also a minor scale. So if you're playing C major and perhaps you're playing C sharp minor, like, and someone's asking you to play E major, well, then you don't have to move shit because it's the exact same key, just because of the 1 is, and the 1 is E and the 6 is C sharp. So
yeah,
the 1 being the major tonic and the 6 being the minor tonic. So like each key has a 1-4-5 progression, has like a Ramones, hey ho, like has one of the like I just sang a 1-4-5, and without context, it could be a major or a minor 1-4-5. But once people start sprinkling in the other notes from the major or minor scale, then it sort of has context, and
takes shape.
Context is like, yeah, it's the big word in music, because the more I learn about it, the more I'm finding that all this stuff is the same stuff. It's just recycled and presented. It's packaged in a different way. It's essentially musical marketing. It's like, this is a taco. Oh, I thought it was half of a burrito. That's basically like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like that.
Yeah, I've been kind of just figuring a lot of it out, because I've read a lot of theory books and none of them have ever made sense. So I've been wanting to start to put together, like, as I'm figuring it all out, put together a video series that explains it how I understand it, because I was writing down, like, I was explaining to my friend whole, half, whole, half, and then I was writing down the minor one. I forget what that is right now, but if I wrote it down, I'd be able to easily remember. But I just realized that they're actually the same, except one of them is like 3 notes over. So if you move like a minor three intervals back or something, it becomes it becomes a major scale in a different key. And I'm like, I just noticed that it's always whole, half, whole, half, just depending where you start in the minor scale. I'm like, oh, fuck, like, this is getting easier and easier, every little weird thing I figure out. But like, I don't feel like I've found like a good guitar player's guide to understanding theory ever. Is there like a book out there that you use to start out with this stuff?
Let me write down my question I have for you too. So when I remember this journey too, and everything in music, it was all so mysterious and like, just like, the idea of harmonizing with another guitar player is so fun and stuff. But I was fortunate enough to be at that art school where I was talking to you about, where I had access to, 8 different style of guitar teachers, as well as like all these, cutthroat students that were so good and, so competitive in a good and healthy way coming up. And I was just obsessed with it. Like, what are the modes and how do I use them? How do I apply them to my playing? And, through asking tons of questions and through playing to tons of backing tracks, it became clearer and clearer. But yeah, honestly, just having someone who has the proven path and just, doing everything that they said, that was the best way to get there.
It all just clicks one day, huh?
Yeah, one day after a lot of days, a lot of days of hard work. But yeah, I know what you mean. Some things do kind of click like that. You can kind of work on really hard, put it away, and then it comes out, and you almost forget about it, and then you pick it up, and then it's like, whoa, I can do that technique now, the banjo roll or whatever it was. Do you have a question there?
No, I'm just.
Okay, cool. So then, I was going to ask you, why is it so hard? I mean, what is the hardest part of getting some of this musical theory stuff down?
Well, to be honest, at first I didn't understand intervals, and then I didn't understand that the major key had just a set of intervals, that if you start at C and then apply this interval set, or you start at G, you get different notes, but really it's all the same intervals in between the notes. And like now I totally get that part. And I didn't know what back then I didn't know what a whole step was versus a half step. Like I didn't know if a half step was just one interval or if it's I didn't really know what a half and a whole step were, I guess. So like I used to be in band class, and I played trumpet for a year or 2 years actually, and I learned how to do quarter notes, half notes, read music, the key signature used to confuse me, but I understood it, but I couldn't just like identify all the keys like right off by looking at them. But that kind of taught me a little bit of it, but even back then I didn't really get it, and I don't know. It's just over time it started to sink in, but it's been a long journey, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. What would you say right now is sort of the hardest thing about it to understand?
Remembering when to use 1, 2, 4 versus like 1, 3, 4 fingers going up and down like scales and things like that. But if it's pretty much always the same, except you just slide it up and down frets, is what you're saying, right? Depending on your key.
Right. We're talking about like one scale shape.
Like an A minor would be the same as like a C minor, but an A minor would be like 3 notes down, right?
Yes. Yeah,
But it's the exact
right.
same fingerings.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. See, I didn't know. I even didn't know that it was that simple.
Yeah. So you can use that. Jimmy Page is notorious for that, as he'll constantly just go in between the major and minor relative. But the place where it would get more complex is when you start adding more scale shapes of the exact same scale. So looking at more permutations of the exact same notes all over the fretboard. So if you look at like 5 scale shapes, like from here, 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 and here, up and down the frets, and finding out how they interlock and stuff. I mean, and then you have a lot more scale shapes to pull from. And sure, with any of those scales, yeah, just the same. You could go up or down 3 frets and change the key to the relative, major or minor, but there would just be more of them to deal with.
See, like, I guess one of the things is, like you were just saying, is there's all the different positions. I just pulled it up on my phone, so I'll show the camera here.
Oh, okay.
Here, I'll show it so you can see
Perfect.
it. I never liked looking at it like this because I feel like that's just these weird little boxes, and that doesn't help me. But what I really like is when they overlay that whole thing onto the whole fretboard, so I could see, like, I can move vertically here, I can move horizontally here, like this isn't the same scale, but you could see down on the bottom here.
Yeah.
Right there. It's got all the notes on the fretboard. Like, I want to just know every scale that good to where I can look at it and just be like, I guess I just want to be like a god of the guitar to where I can just see every shape and every pattern no matter what key I'm in. And I don't know how many people actually can do that. Just like play like John Petrucci level shredding scales up and down and then shift keys whenever you want and never hit a wrong note. Like, I mean, maybe I'm asking for too much because that sounds pretty crazy, but that's where I want to be.
Wow. So why do you want to be there?
I want to be able to do anything, I guess. Like, when I'm playing music, like, I just want to be able to do anything, I guess. I don't know. I just feel like that's how you could. I don't think you ever master the guitar, but I feel like that's the first step to becoming one of those guitar gurus, like a Guthrie. Like, he seems like he would know that kind of stuff. You're like, tell him to play, any key, any arpeggio, he would just do it without even thinking about it. And like, that's what I want to be at, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, you're saying like, I want to be able to play anything, but is there anything specific? Like, does that mean to you? Obviously you referenced John Petrucci and Guthrie Govan, but anyone else that really just, man, if I could sound like that, or the reason I want to sound like that, what would it be?
I don't know. I just want to have a freedom, I guess, to like if somebody's playing in like my girl sings and she listens to a lot of older music like 70s and 60s and even some 50s stuff. And like if she puts stuff on, I would love to be able to just like bust out over that music and like not have like any difficulties. Like how would I even know what's like the easiest way to find what key that song's even in? Because I guess that would be the first step.
You would like to that's so cool that she sings, and you would like to, throw down some chords that you can play and she can sing over. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
That, or like if we're playing like some old song, like she puts on something that I don't really know the music that well, and I can just, if there's like a couple things I can do real quick to go, okay, well, not that. Okay, here's the key that it's in, and then go, okay, cool, this is C major or something like that. Like, how would you even know? How do you identify what scale something's in, or what scales to use, what key it's in?
Gotcha. Okay, so, I mean, how good is your ear, would you say?
It's okay. It's not the best. I definitely don't think it's my best suit.
Okay. But, if I were to throw a note out there, you had your guitar. So you had your guitar to use as reference. Would you be able to kind of pluck through strings and find the same note?
That's exactly what I do. I kind of go up and down, and then I'll find like, oh, here's like a little, like one of my little tricks. Oh, here's one of my tricks. I can do it in this position. Then I can probably do this, and then I can probably do this. So I feel like I'm almost halfway there with figuring that out, but I feel like I'm like stumbling through it like a blind man in a room looking for something. Whereas like a lot of guitar players, they just hear the song and then they're just like, oh yeah, I know this scale.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So to answer your question, I mean, when it comes to anything ear related, anything, a lot of people come to me and say, man, dude, if I just want to, or like, they always say, I have this cousin and I just turn on a song and then he can play it. My cousin is the best. And so my always go-to answer for I have this cousin question, which is basically the same question, is always, okay, well, what you have to do first is you have to learn a scale. So you got the scale. And then the next step is to learn the 7 chords within the scale. And besides those 7 chords, there's a couple of harmonic phenomenons that make their way consistently into pop music, such as going to the 4 major chord. So in C, the 4 major chord would be F, to the 4 minor chord. And that would be obviously F minor. So that happens all day long, happens in like Creep, More Than Words, every Beatles song ever. and a lot of songs that are even way older than that. The other one is going in with the 5 chord. The 5 chord is traditionally a minor chord. Well, if we're looking at it from a major standpoint, from a major reference, so C, D, E, the E would be the minor 3, but consistently people make it a major 3, and that has a really common sound. And I'll just pull it up just to reference your ear. Creep actually does both of them. So here we are, happy at our C chord. This is our 1 chord. So it would actually be theoretically it would be a minor 3 there, but instead they go to a major 3. To the major 4, to the minor 4, back to the 1. So really like recognizable. Besides those 2 changes, okay, you have a key, you know the available chords within the key, so you just put on the track and start fishing through that scale that you have. Like I said, you pluck through, you find that one note that sounds right, and from off of that note you play your minor scale or your major scale, and if everything's coming together, like you said, you could do the whole half. If not, you could try the whole half whole, and see which one kind of ends up in tune. Oh, you want to do an example?
I'm gonna see. Let's see if what I think I kind of get it.
Yeah.
You hear that?
Yeah, I can hear it. Nice, man.
Okay, so
here's your starting chords, and I'm not going to tell you which ones they are.
Oh fuck! I'm not gonna be able to get this already.
So your first assignment is to start picking around and find the first note that kind of sounds right to you, quote unquote right.
Right there. That's the first one I found that I like.
Which one?
Well, it's a C.
Okay, perfect. So the next step is to play like what?
So just go up the scale.
What scale?
Or whatever. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's something like that.
Yeah, dude.
Something like that. But so I could use that same scale. I'm doing what right? That's what it. So then, or if it's a different chord, be like, okay, so there's the A, and then I don't know. I'm screwing it up right now, but
you're doing fantastic, and this is like base level of figuring out tunes from ear. So that's all you would really need to do. From there, it's just your ear is gonna expand on that. But you did absolutely perfect, man. It's just like finding that scale, finding that note, and then off of that note, finding the scale, and then the scale will tell you which chords are available. And then, more often than not, in the tune that your girlfriend's listening to, those chords will be there. And
so when you do it, do you hear automatically the scale, or do you like pick through and like find the position and go like, oh, here it is?
Nowadays, okay, the chances that you're on a wrong note are actually far slimmer than the chances on you being on a right note. More often than not nowadays, just because I play music a ton, and my ears grown a ton from it. So I don't want to be like, oh, well, when I do it, it's just epic, bro. That's not what I'm trying to say.
I bet it fucking is, though.
It's gotten a lot easier over time, and usually if I have like one reference note, my ear will more often than not be right on the next note of the scale. And then because I'm really familiar with the scale shapes that we talked about, from there I can just kind of go off of the interlocking scale shapes. But that's how I think about it. And then,
so you think of the scale first, and then you think of the chords after?
yeah, I think the scale will kind of like instantly put me into a room of reference, and then, you know, like once I'm in the room, I can kind of see the details. Oh, like cool, there's a painting in this room, to give you kind of a metaphor, if that's making sense. The paintings being the chords, and the scales just sort of being the room. But yeah, that's how I would approach it. A more advanced musician could probably hear the chords first and start thinking off of the chords immediately, and then when the chord changes, to think off of the chord and which scale you can play over that. Because for each chord, you know, where things get a little more complex is you have different scales you could play off of each chord. But you know, to keep things simple, like you just played Killer C scale, you know, there's 7 different chords in that key, and there's 7 different notes in that key. And then, yeah, I would just use that scale to play over whatever your girlfriend's listening to, and you'll sound in key, you know?
So I basically got to memorize just a major scale and a minor scale, or would it even? It doesn't overlap, right? Oh yeah. So I'd have to learn the major scale starting like at a low root like that, and a minor, and then I can kind of just slide that up and find it.
Yeah, I would say you only have to learn one scale. In learning one scale, you learn a bunch of scales, because they're all one. Each different scale within one major scale is still, like I was saying earlier, it's still the same notes. You know, like if we were to look at a piano and we just played the white keys, it would be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and in that you have C major, you have A minor, and then you have the other weirder names, you know, D Dorian, G Mixolydian, F Lydian, E Phrygian. So I would just learn that one scale really good, and you know, if it's in a different key, you'll just shift your point of reference, which will get bigger and bigger as you learn the whole scale, and then just shift that, and you know, there will be points where it gets cut off and then recycled over here, and yeah, it'll make sense.
Yeah, it already is starting to make more sense just from this. That's pretty cool to be able to find a key. All I got to do is start at, and you know, I didn't know if people started with the scale or started with the chords, and like, but then knowing the scale, you know, there's the 7 notes of the scale, and you could just start using those chords.
Exactly. Yeah, because I think it can be hard to figure out, you know, any given key based off of a chord, because a lot of chords have similar keys, a lot of keys have similar chords. Like the G major chord is in the key of G major, but it's also in the key of B minor and C major. And so, yeah, if you have the scale, it's a little bit more precise, and then you could just build off of that. So, you know, we just were able to get a kind of a cool window to exactly where you're at with this stuff. Where would you personally say you're at with, you know, trying to figure out a key and stuff like that?
Well, with that new knowledge, I would say I'm way closer. Like now I want to go out and test the knowledge and like get more comfortable just doing it. But I mean, within a week, that might be like, I can't believe I couldn't do that before. Like that might be, it seems like a lot of times I struggle with something for a long time, and then once I get it, I'm like, oh, that's fucking easy now. Like, I feel like that it might be pretty fucking easy now. Once I get a little bit of experience with doing it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It definitely probably will be. So, I mean, if you were to focus on like one thing that currently has the greatest impact on getting through to the other side, where, you know, you can, one, just kind of listen to a key and then pick up on it, or you know, become, as you said, the god of guitar, where you can actually just have all these different scales available. You know, that's a little bit down the road, but you know, just have one set of scales available to you where you can play the guitar in a much more comfortable, like familiar way. I mean, what would you say the one thing that sort of had the greatest impact on you?
What do you mean as far as what?
Oh, in terms of getting there, what do you think like would have the greatest impact?
I don't even know, to be honest. I don't think I quite understand the question.
I think like as I was saying it too, I was like, this question is phrased quite odd. What I'm trying to say is, if there was something to bridge that gap, I mean, what do you think would be the greatest way to bridge that gap between where you are now, where you're playing great, and you're just getting the hang of this stuff, to the other side where you say you're like a god of guitars, or similar to Guthrie Govan, where you can just kind of command the fretboard.
What would be the biggest? I don't think I still get it.
Okay, it's all good. Then, what do you think would be the best way to go about learning this stuff?
I mean, I think just continuing to ask questions and drill it, right?
I got you. Yeah, I mean, whatever you think.
I think that's about it. It's putting the time in and getting those scales rock solid, and also, I mean, I guess just putting in the time and practicing.
Yeah. Sick, man. So as we kind of touched on earlier, like obviously, playing a little bit more real estate over the fretboard is something you're interested in, but more so the bigger why for that would be, well, because you want to be able to hear songs and play along to them, and from there, I assume, either like recreate them with your own chords, or just have a fun evening with your girlfriend, jamming to a great track. Or was there anything else we sort of touched on or missed, or just knowing the theory for your own enjoyment, like playing the guitar and being able to simply, or jam with more people, right? We're no longer, it's like, oh God, we're going to play in B now. Well, I don't know any of the scales in B, but now so you kind of know all the scales.
That is something I've always steered away from. Like, just like whenever people want to jam, I don't really like, unless we have like things we decided, like, oh, let's practice these songs and then we'll get together and jam those songs. When people are like, let's just jam, I'm like, I mean, I don't know, like, scales. I don't know what we're going to be jamming. Like, what do you mean freestyle jamming? Like, how does everybody get on the same page? So, like, that's something I've never really, even, like, I kind of steer away from it when people are like, let's just get together and jam. I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, let's write something. I'm down to get together and write something. So I can have my scales in front of me and I can go, okay, we're going over to that shape. Let me look at the scales, and like, but to just have it off the top of my head was always like a huge challenge to me.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Well, what I would think that sort of your step-by-step process for you would be is, one, getting down these keys, right? Like, if we were to just take A minor and knowing A minor. So right now you're familiar with one of the shapes of A minor, or most of them? Just you have to think about it.
Yeah, I pretty much have to think about it. I know one shape,
Okay.
and that's about it. And then from that shape, I can go like up and down the B and the E string. I can go up and down that way, or I can go vertically across all strings, but only in like one position, really.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, just knowing, hey, this is the A minor shape. It looks like this, and instead of like, I think I can manage or work my way through this, now it's just like, yeah, I've got that shape. I've got it when I go like all the way up there, or when it's back down here. So just knowing that those scale shapes in and out, and the different changes they make specific to that one key, and then also knowing, okay, which chords are in A minor. That's super key too.
Makes sense.
Yeah, as far as when it comes to jamming with people, you need to start playing to these backing tracks. You can find backing tracks on YouTube, and just jam out on them. You're a creative person, I can tell from the guitars hanging on your wall. Just kind of thinking like, what do I hear in my head, and can that is exactly that or something pretty close to it come out if I give it a shot on the guitar right now. And the cool thing is, just by learning, as I said, all those A minor shapes, you get all this plethora of different varieties, sounds you can learn from just knowing that one shape. For instance, to go back to the modes, you can learn all the different sounds of Lydian and mixed Lydian. They all sound so different from one another, and it's so cool. So by putting on a different backing track and playing the exact same notes, you're going to sound a lot different just based off of the chords, which is a beautiful thing. So knowing that, and then, like you said, just taking it. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, keep going.
Yeah, besides that, just taking more tunes, spending more nights with your girlfriend where it's like, man, that you're killing that vocal, but what else can I do to play over that? After you play enough backing tracks, you'll probably feel pretty confident, pretty competent in okay, so maybe this isn't exactly A minor, but that's okay. I'm just gonna shift up, find that root note, and then from there, yeah, I know like one of these scale shapes really good, and then I'm pretty sure this is the next shape down, and I can sort of get there. So yeah, that sort of be, the basics, the step by step of getting you from where you're at to where you want to be when it comes to improvising or learning these keys, understanding them and stuff. What do you think of those steps?
I like it. What I think the next little experiment I'm going to do is, since I already know like A minor, I'm going to go now to like G minor and just move the whole thing down 2 frets. No. Whatever, got a note off in there, but like, so I want to experiment and go take G minor or like B minor and just move them up and down that same A minor up and down 2 frets and just kind of close my eyes and picture like I'm in A minor anyways. But like you said, the feel is going to be completely different, and like that's interesting. I'm looking forward to trying that.
Yeah, definitely, man. That would be a 6th step to work into the things I've talked about. And what do you think about the exact steps that I've talked about? Just kind of going through each scale shape, and is that something you'd be?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
like, just real quick, just nope, not that one. Nope. Well, there it is. Like that kind of thing. Like going through real quick. Nope, not that. Nope, not that. Not. Oh, there we go. Like I feel like once you get practiced at it, you find it in a couple seconds, huh?
Yeah, definitely, man. But just kind of reiterating it and going back over, knowing it like it's the back of your hand. Like it's such a cliche saying, but yeah, like you really you've internalized the scale, and the different steps. Yeah. So what I do with my business is I coach guitarists one-on-one, similar to this, getting together once weekly for a Skype get together where we're going over your exact goals, whether it's the speed or in your case just the improvising and getting together all these scales that are kind of a little bit newer, but getting a little bit more and more concrete, making a little bit more and more sense each week. And as well as a one-on-one call, you also have a group call that I have. I have 2 group calls each week where I get together with everyone that I'm working with, and although everyone has their own specific goals, a lot of people in common, you know, working on technique stuff. Speed building is like super big for the people that I'm working with. But, you know, a lot of people just want to learn the chords so that they can sing their favorite songs. And so it's kind of cool to share, to kind of recreate that setting I was in high school, where there was so many people around me all focused on the same thing, and, you know, get so focused on getting the results. Yeah. Besides these group calls, you have my attention anytime you want to reach out. If there's during a practice session, you're like, I don't know about this scale, or, you know, if you can make this a bit more clear, then yeah, I'm just going to either send a video or a message to say, hey, yeah, it's actually like this, or play it through. It's like that. And yeah, the investment for the coaching is $1,000. So let's do it, man.
All right, cool, man. Well, everybody follow Luke at LukeManShredding on Instagram. And yeah, any final words?
Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. Honestly, talking guitar is one of the things I'm most passionate about in the world. And, you know, to get to talk to a greater audience is just a big honor. And when you actually reached out to me, I was just humbled, because, you know, it's so cool to get to interact with people who've taken the time to cultivate a following of people just like us that actually care so much about guitar. And, you know, I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
Go follow him on Instagram. If you need any type of lessons or anything like that, one-on-one coaching, hit him up. And as far as me, subscribe to the YouTube channel, of course, and shout out to Iron Age Accessories for their kill switches. Check those guys out. They're the best. Luke, you ever use kill switches?
I did back in the day, but I think I need an Iron Age one. I need to invest in that, because every time I would wire one, it was just wouldn't really it wouldn't hold up. You know, after a couple playthroughs of Jordan, it was toast. So yeah,
yeah, you got to get an Iron Age one.
Yeah, I think that's the game plan.
Hell yeah! All right, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.